Hey listeners, we're nearing the end of our 15th anniversary fundraising campaign, and we need your help to meet our goal. This campaign offers you a chance to win a unique food and music experience in one of the most exciting cities in America. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and you'll be entered to win dinner for two and 2 tickets to a concert in one of 8 amazing cities: New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Ardmore, Pennsylvania, and Asheville. All donations support our work educating food system storytellers. And when you donate, you can choose one of those cities and you'll be entered to win dinner and 2 tickets to a show. So help us reach our goal and enter to win dinner and a show in the city of your choice. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
The Grape Nation is brought to you by Wine Access. Here's a great way to discover and drink the best wines expertly curated for you. Go to wineaccess.com for more info. Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Jean Gonon. We'll talk to Jean about the Northern Rhone, Saint-Joseph, and Domaine Pierre Gonon. If we have time, we'll taste the 2016 Gonon Rouge for our weekly wine sip. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Jean Gonon is a second-generation winemaker with the soul, knowledge, and experience of many more generations. Jean, along with his brother Pierre, are the proprietors of Domaine Pierre Gonon in Saint-Joseph in the Northern Rhone of France. The purity and distinctive character of their wines, achieved through great terroirs, a strong commitment to farming and winemaking, with an eye towards traditional methods, has made Pierre Gonon the finest domain in Saint-Joseph. At least that's my opinion, Jean. Jean, welcome to the Grape Nation.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sam.
Jean, we were originally going to talk remotely via Zencastr. We had a few problems. You hung in there with us. So we are now talking via audio from Zoom. So hopefully the quality will be good. Jean, where are you right now? Are you in the Mauve? In northern,
yes.
In the Northern Rhone?
I'm in Mauve, so Mauve is located maybe 100 kilometers from Lyon and 100 kilometers from Avignon. So we are just in the center, just between the north and the south.
Right.
So Mauve is a little village, 1,200 people are living
That's
there.
it. Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Jean, initially, you did not set out to be in the wine business. Can you give us a little background on your journey in life that got you to the family winery? And then can you take a few moments after that just to give me a little history of the domain?
Oh, yes. So maybe if we start by the beginning, the domain was founded by our father, Pierre Gonon, in the early 50s after the war. So it was so different. The world wine was not the one we know now. And people were just small farmers. And they used to farm apricots, peaches, cherries, and some wine. So it was very, very different. After, in the 60s, the wine business was not so good, so they were selling the wine to the big negociant, like Chapoutier, Delas, Chaboulet. But at the end, this negotiation doesn't want more Saint Joseph. So my father married my mother in '64, and they decided to do their own bottling. And after that, they never sell again to the negotiant. So it was the story. And after that, in the '80s, my father came here, and unfortunately, he can't work anymore. And my younger brother, Pierre, was more close to him and was designated to farm the domain, but he was too young, still at school. So I came back, and I work with a little bit with my father, but after 2 years with my brother. So we were very young. Pierre was 19, and I was 23. So yes, we were young and completely unconscious, I think, of what we want to do.
Jean, but like I said earlier, was it not really your intention to go into the wine business? I mean, in a sense, did you get pulled back, or you felt, you wanted to get into the business?
No, I don't know what I want to do. In fact, when I was 20, I just want to work. I never work in the vineyards and everything because I was helping my parents during holidays. But it was, and I think it was difficult for me because at this time you need to work with your father, and I was not so close. So when my father came here, of course I wanted to help the family, but maybe it helps me because it was much more easier to work with my brother than to my father.
Right. All right. So the two of you are...
Yes, a question of generation, and it was not... we have known Pierre study a little bit at school at the vines, but I didn't study anything about wine, so I had no idea about the wine. I just know how to work the best I can, but it was not, I never tasted the great wines from Burgundy, from Bordeaux. Nothing. I just have an idea of the work.
That's amazing. It's probably so uncommon, when you talk to most wine people, because they're very generational and they grew up in and around it. I want you to help me with something. I want to talk about, your domain and the area and winemaking, but I want you to help me frame the region. I want to talk briefly about Saint Joseph. I mean, the AOC is relatively new for the world of wine. Can you just, so people know where you are, can you talk a little about, climate, soil, there's different towns and locations, there's predominant grapes. Give me a quick take on that.
So Saint Joseph is along the Rhone Valley, and now the appellation is more or less 60 kilometers along the Rhone Valley. But at the beginning, when it was founded, it was in 56. The appellation was more restrained because it was only 6 villages, and in 56 it was only 100 hectares of vineyards. Now it's more or less 1,500, and it's 26 villages since the appellation was expanded in the 60s. So you have many different types of soil, even if they are mostly granite, so acid soil, and maybe half of the appellation is on the slopes, and half of the appellation is more on the plateau or a little bit on the bottom, on the valley side. For us, our vineyard, it's very small because it's only 10 hectares on the 3 birthplaces, villages, Mauve, where we have Cellar, Tournon, and Saint-Jean-de-Musol. And these three villages are, the climate is, it's not Provence, it's more continental, with hot summer, less rain, but cold winter. And we have all our vineyard on the slopes, nothing on the plateau, and a little bit on the bottom, but we declassified these parcels to do vin de pays because it's not terroir.
So Jean, the villages, Tournon, Mauve, Musol, those are the prime growing areas. You are in Mauve. As it expanded, the areas of expansion and the wines there, is it true to say were not near the quality of the original villages?
I will not say that. I will say that they are very different. So, of course, Saint-Joseph is not homogenic, but you have very good wine in the north of the appellation, in the middle of the appellation, and in the south. But they are different, of course.
Right.
Because it's not exactly the same climate. It's not the... so you can't say that the wine are better in the south or in the north. They are different.
Right. So that's a good thing. You've said that the real work in wine is the farming. I mean, you are a true farmer, maybe a farmer first and then a winemaker. And then you say the rest is so simple. So explain. All the important work is in the farm initially, right?
Yes. For us, winemaking is a very simple process. All the work, all the job is done in the vineyard because this vineyard is these soils, these slopes, they need a lot of attention. So every day we are in the vineyard because everything you can do to retain the soil, to plow, to how so many things are done by hands. So farming is the real thing here. And after, when you have the great grapes ripe, it's so easy to make wine. You know, winemaking is not a big thing. Right. Winemaking is a simple process. You pick, fermenting, press, and that's done. But you will not interfere a lot in the process because who are you to judge this process? You don't know what nature is doing during fermentation.
So, Jean, you're in a very unique situation, and I want you to talk about it. You are on hilly, terraced slopes with your vines. That makes your farming harder and more time consuming. That's one of the reasons with you that the farming, is the real work in wine. You still agree that in any vineyard, it's the farming, whether it's a flat benchland in Napa Valley, right? I mean, you still have to create, the best grapes. True?
Yes, of course, we want the best grapes, but after it's a question of chance, because the weather, you can't control the rain, but you try to do your best, and maybe the most important thing is to try to do the best. And after there is the part.
Let's talk about Domaine Pierre Gonon. Tell me, you mentioned the locations that you have the vineyards. Tell me about the vineyards, and the difference between each one. I know one of them was you acquired the old Trolla vineyard in Mousol. I mean, tell me about the locations.
So we have 10 hectares in total. So it's quite a small vineyard, but it's not one piece of land. It's many different pieces of land. And we have some vineyard in Mauve, of course, this village where we are located, and some in Tournon, just the village, and in Saint-Jean-de-Musol, where we have the oldest vines. They have been planted just after the First War, so maybe in 1920. And we blend, at the end, we blend all these vineyards to do one single cuvée of Saint-Joseph. Because each plot, each soil brings something to the blend. So maybe in Les Oliviers we have where we have more clays, the wines are a little bit rounder, riper. In Tournon, where it's pure granite, the wines are more salty, but the tannins are always a little bit rustic. And in Saint-Jean-de-Musol, where the oldest vines are, the wines are always dry but refined. So each vineyard brings something to the blend.
So Saint-Jean-Musol is the old Trolla vineyards, the older vines.
Yes, exactly.
Do you
exactly.
You bottle them separately? Do you blend grapes from those vineyards with the other ones? Do you do both?
Yes, so we blend to have one Saint-Joseph, and some vintages we bottled one barrel of the oldest vines separately to make a cuvée vieille vigne, but we have done 06, 07, 09, and 10. So it's not every vintage. It's
right.
Not, and it's only one barrel. So it's just to have to keep something from these old vines, and
right.
Some memories from Mr. Trolla too, because he's now nearly 90. So it's nice to keep memories from him.
How early on, you said early on you didn't go to any type of wine school. You had no experience. You didn't even taste a lot of wines. How important early on, when you knew Mr. Trolla and when you bought the vineyards, was he a mentor to you, influence, teacher? I mean, was that an important step in the Gonon wine world?
No, I think Mr. Trolla was just very nice with us. He knew our work in the vineyard in Mauve and Tournon, and he wanted somebody to take in charge his vineyard after he will be retired. But for us, he was not a mentor. Maybe Jean-Louis Crippa, where my brother worked a little bit. Jean-Louis Crippa in Tournon was more a mentor because he was very precise, hard worker. He was more a mentor for us than maybe Raymond Trolla.
Right.
Raymond Trolla, the place was amazing and everything, but the work, and we learn more from Jean-Louis Crippa, I think.
And the vines at Trolla were upwards to 100 years old. I mean, when you got in there?
Yeah, so they are not all 100 years old. Most, they are between 50 and 60 years old, and the oldest part is 100. but they are still healthy and they are still producing grapes. They are not done, not yet.
Right. A few things. The soil is mostly granite, and how do you pronounce it? Gneiss? Gneiss?
Gneiss. Yes, in Saint-Jean-de-Musol it's more gneiss, so it's like an old granite, very sandy, very poor.
And what characteristics does the granite and the gneiss, give to the wines?
The granite in Tournon is a young granite, so maybe the wine are always ripe, full-bodied, strong, dark, with strong tannins. And in Saint-Jean-de-Musol, the wines are always more refined with this violet floral touch due to the iron in the soil.
Right.
But the wine has got structure, but no flesh around this structure. So they are completely different.
Right.
They blend well.
Can you tell me, this is important to your winemaking, but I want you to help me explain it to our listeners. Can you tell me about selection, Marsali, and cloning, and the importance of old vines? Can you give me a little primer on that? Because that's important to how you, grow your vines and make your wines.
Yeah, so it's important to know that Syrah is producing not regularly. So it's really up and down, the production with Syrah. So in the very early, maybe at the end of the 70s, people selected some clones to have a bigger production, a riper production. But now we can see that these grapes are maybe too ripe, growing too much production. So the most important maybe is to come back to the local selection, Marsal selection, to have more diversity and maybe riper stems too, a lower degree of alcohol. Maybe if it's just a few 0.4 or 0.5, it's very important now to have a little bit lower alcohol. And yes, so we believe in Marsal selection, but it's a long-term work,
Right.
It will not be finished because you always need to select more and different, and sometimes you fail.
Right.
But it's very important to maintain the diversity of Syrah.
Do the uncloned vines, the Marsal, they live longer, right? I mean, cloned vines do not live or don't live as long as a uncloned. No. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. And it's a very big problem because you will never have old vines with clones because they are struggling, with this big production when they are young. So it's the problem. It's that you will never have
right.
And maybe 50% of the northern Rhone is planted with clones. So yes, it's a big problem for all the vineyards around.
Speaking of vineyards, I don't want to skip the point where you talked about early that all the vines are on a slope, hilly, terraced. I mean, it's maybe hard for some people to imagine, but describe. I mean, there are rows of vines that are literally on a little terrace that's, maybe 10, 15, 20 feet wide, and you have to farm each one. Can you talk about that a little, which is the difficulty of, the farming you have to do?
Yes, it's difficult, but it's our job.
Right.
We know nothing else, so yes, it's difficult, and we are very lucky to. We have people working with us, and they are really involved in all the organic process, organic farming. So it's really important to find the right people to work, because you can't do everything by yourself. And we are lucky to have two guys working all along the year with us, and a lot of seasonal workers too, especially for hoeing, for tying up the vines, because all the vines are on stake. They have all their individual stakes, and we need to tie them up. So yes, everything we are. It's like being one people for 1 hectare working.
Right.
If we want to do it correctly.
You shifted to organics in the early 2000s. My guess is that previous to that, you were pretty close to the practice of organics, but now you're entirely organic. Tell me what that entails. I mean, you talked about it a little, where your practices, herbicides, all of that.
Yes, but I think in this area, a lot of people are doing, the spraying are very close to organic. People are using copper, sulfur, but not a lot of insecticide or chemicals. But the main problem is for the soil. So a lot of farmers are still using herbicides because of the slopes, because of the small terraces. But there are some other ways. You can plow, you can hoe. But yes, we did it in 2004. So yes, it has changed our life really, because you are more focused on the soil, and the soil is everything. The weather is a part of your vintage, but the soil is a part of all your life. It will be. You will keep it all your life. So you have to maintain your soil, to be careful, and yes, and we don't believe in grass, and so because the soils are too poor in nitrogen, so we need to plow and to hoe. It's really important.
Did your dad initially follow organic practices and you continued on, or was he using herbicides at any point? When you first got in there
before 2004, we used herbicides.
Oh, you did?
We were doing all
recently.
the spray. Yeah. And but we did until the end of the 90s, and after doing 5 years, we left the grass in the vineyard. And after 5 years, in 2003, we have seen the limit of that in our vineyards. The production was very low. The vines were suffering in the early spring. It was the end for us to leave the grass growing in the vineyard. And it's easy to understand, because the old people were plowing, hoeing, and it was very difficult for them too. But if they were doing this, it was for one reason.
Right. Jean, it's fair to say that, you're an old soul as far as tradition and, practicing your methods in the field and in the cellar. I want you to get a little into your winemaking and cellar practices. Everything from whole cluster, to the type of, vessels that you store the wine and age them. Tell me a little about the winemaking. You toiled over the farming, you got the grapes in, you did the good stuff. Now, how do we make the good wine? I mean, I don't want to discount this so much. I get the farming, but how do we make the Gonon Syrah wine?
And after you have to pay attention to details when the grapes arrive, but in a simple way. So we are not for the white. It's very simple because we are doing some white Saint Joseph too with Marsanne and Roussanne. So we press directly the grapes, but slowly. And after we are making one juice, mixing the Marsanne and the Roussanne together, and it's going in barrels for fermentation. And it will stay more or less 1 year on the sediment before bottling in winter.
Is the white wine predominantly one grape more than the other year in, year out? Or yes, the blend varies?
We have more or less 80% of Marsanne and 20% of Roussanne. Marsanne has got the structure, and Roussanne has got the refined fruit, very delicate, but the structure is with Marsanne.
And that's the l'Olivier Blanc.
Yes, exactly, because it's coming from a single lieu-dit named Les Oliviers with more clay. So this kind of soil make the wine rich, ripe, powerful. They are white for food. They are not white for aperitif or fresh seafood.
Right.
They need something a little bit more creamy, white meat.
That was the first vineyard your father farmed, correct?
Yes, exactly. So he started by, 1 hectare of white Saint Joseph and just a little bit of red.
I've had it many times, and it is certainly a special wine. All right, talk to me about, the reds, which is certainly the bulk of the wines that you make. Talk to me about the winemaking and cellar practices there.
So the red, we put the grapes in the big open tank for fermentation. So sometimes it's all cluster, depending of the vintage, depending of the grapes. Sometimes we distant a little bit. So usually it's between 80 to 90% of all cluster. And after fermentation, it's more or less 3 weeks in these tanks. And after that, we put the wine in bigger barrels named Domaine. So it's 600 liters. And it will stay 1 year in the Domaine, and after about 5-6 months in tank. So the first winter is in barrels downstairs, and the second winter is in stainless tank upstairs in the cold to close a little bit the wines. And after we are bottling without filtration, or because the winter sediment naturally the cold weather sediment naturally the wine.
So you destem very little. What characteristics do the stems add to your wine? So
on the nose, I think you will have, after maybe between 4-6 years, something a little bit more floral, and the structure in the mouth is always a little bit harder, a little bit severe at the beginning, with a touch of green. But after maybe quite quickly, 1 year, you will have something softer and.
That's interesting. I thought it would take, a little longer. Two questions. Do you crush by any type of machine or feet? And do you do any punch downs in any of the tanks?
Yes, so we are punching down twice a day with the feet, of course, at the beginning, because we are not strong enough with the arms because it's all cluster, so it's very strong, and you need your legs to be stronger to punch it down. And after I don't know, after fermentation, so maybe after 10 days, we can do it with the arms, with a little, like a big stick. You can punch down.
Do you do anything different with the old vines from the Trolla vineyard? Do you in the winemaking process?
Yeah.
Do you vint it differently?
No, it's the same way, except that the old vines are always all cluster because the stems are very ripe, thin, and it brings something to these old vines, a little bit more structure, something a little bit more austere.
Right.
So it's always all cluster.
So we talked a little about the white. You just talked about the old vines. Is it fair to say the wine you make the most of is the red Saint Joseph, and then, or is it more of the Ferret?
Yes, but our wine is the blend Saint Joseph red, and after we are doing the Il Ferret with the youngest vines and with the bottom.
Right. So the difference really is vine age. Anything else on the Ferret?
Yes, and the soil for Il Ferret. Maybe half of the vineyard is on the bottom, so deeper soil, richer soil. So the grapes are always very ripe, but with not the same quality of tannins. The tannins are, even if there is less tannins in the Il Ferret, they are a little bit more aggressive, and it's not the same quality, I think. It's the main difference.
Does that mean it ages, but it won't age as long as the Saint Joseph red, or not necessarily?
No, I think the Il Ferret is made to be drink quite young.
What's
after
the window?
2-3 years.
Okay.
I will say 2, 3, 4 years on the fruit, not to keep.
Right.
And Saint Joseph, you can try when it's very young after bottling, because usually they are open after 1 year of bottling, but you can keep them. Maybe the best window is between 6 and 10 years old, depending on the vintage.
Jean, we have to take a quick break for our sponsors. We're talking to Jean Gonon from Domaine Pierre Gonon in the Northern Rhone in Saint Joseph. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Grape Nation. I want to welcome a new sponsor to the Grape Nation, Wine Access. Whether you're a beginner or a wine connoisseur, Wine Access makes it easy for everyone to learn about and buy the wines you like. Doesn't matter whether you're looking to spend a few bucks or go hard, Wine Access will take the guesswork out of choosing a great bottle. It's all about the curation. Their team tastes over 20,000 wines per year. They only select the finest wines that exceed expectations and over-deliver on price. I, along with my guests, always tell you guys to rely on the experts, whether it be retailers, somms, or winemakers. Wine Access has all the knowledge, connections, and stories to point you to the best wines based on your tastes. It takes decades to cultivate relationships with under-the-radar winemakers and iconic producers. Let Wine Access and their sommeliers, master sommeliers, and masters of wine unlock access to the most out-of-reach wines. Discover your new favorite bottle with Wine Access. They have an exclusive offer available for the Grape Nation listeners. 20% off your first order. Just go to the special URL, wineaccess.com/grapenation, and the discount will be applied at checkout. There are some incredible wines waiting for you, so go now to wineaccess.com/grapenation for 20% off. Okay, we're back. We're back with my guest, Jean Gonon. Jean, along with his brother, is the proprietor of Domaine Pierre Gonon, making magnificent wines in Saint Joseph in the northern Rhone of France. Jean, I'm always curious about this. I mean, vintages vary. I mean, that's what nature's all about. But, you know, did you have tough vintages, and what made them tough? You know, have you had a string? I mean, all your wines are great. But talk to me about tough vintages, and I'm going to back you against the wall and ask you about favorite vintages.
It's always a difficult question to speak about the top vintages, because the top vintages are usually the easiest vintages. So I don't know, maybe we can say 10 was one of the greatest wines we had. But it was an easy vintage, you know, small harvest, not too early, not too late. And after that, sometimes you can have very difficult vintage, like, I don't know, 08, 02, or more recently, maybe some vintages like 12, 14, a little bit more difficult because we had some rain during picking, and sometimes you are prouder of these vintages because they needed more work, more
Right.
Yeah, so, but of course, the greatest are always the best vintages are always the easiest, usually.
Right. When I asked you toughest, I didn't necessarily mean that toughest would indicate, you know, the worst wines. I'm just, you know, what it took to get to those wines, you know, whether they were great or, you know, very good. I'm curious with what's been going on almost the past year or even more. I'm curious how your life has been during the pandemic. You know, what effects it's had on you personally, what effects it's had on, you know, your day-to-day, you know, process of, you know, growing and making wine.
We were very lucky during this pandemic because when we started in March to have all the restrictions in France, for us it was the beginning of the season, so the beginning of having new employees, to have new seasonal workers coming from Spain, coming from Romania, coming from Morocco, and we were very lucky because everybody was there. And people were very involved. Nobody was sick. Nobody was here. So we can do all the season. And for us, it was a real escape, you know, from the to work outside, to be allowed to work outside with people. You can speak, you can share. So it was. I can say that we had a good time, despite all the
one of the few people who could say that. Thank God.
Yeah, yes, and it's why we are really lucky because we were working, and it was the same during harvest.
Right. Has the pandemic created any new challenges for you, or you'll get back to business as normal? Does it change the timeline? Is it going to change how you can get people? Is that unknown yet?
No, it's a little because the vines are not waiting, so it's a little bit a normal life. Honestly, we just realized that that it was very comfortable to have less visitors during the big season in April, May, June, because we have more time to think about the work, to be more focused on our work. But it's a shame to say that, because we are very lucky that people are coming to taste our wines.
Well, objectively, I don't think you're going to have to worry about that. I think you're going to have to worry about too many people coming, but that's, a compliment, to the wines you make. To that point, I'm not sure. I don't get a sense you're in this, for the money. I mean, I know you want to do everything right, make a living. But what does the future look like? I mean, do you want to acquire more land? Are you happy with what you have? I mean, where do you see yourself, down the road?
No, we are happy with what we had. Honestly, we don't need more, except if it's to do better. So if I don't know, if we can plant a very good land, if we can rent a very good vine, why not? But it's not necessary at this point of our life. We prefer to focus on what we have, because nothing is perfect. You always need to involve and to do better. So, and the next generation will see. But we are not young people with my brother, and we have more than 50 years old. We are more than 50
Right.
years old. So maybe we need more to focus and do better and than to be bigger.
Is there anyone in the family that has an interest, or is there already?
I think my nephews, so Pierre's
Right.
sons, they are already not involved because they are not working with us, but they are really involved in the wine and in the vines farming.
Right.
So yes,
Demand, interest in the, yeah, we would love it to continue with the family. Interest in the demand of the wine has only gotten, bigger. You don't feel any pressure to react to that, right?
No.
Yeah, you stay the course.
And being the owner of your land, I think it's very important to don't have a pressure from investors.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really important, and so you can have your free mind for your work, for your everyday work, and especially maybe during this pandemic times, it's important not to be too big, and to have your very fidel and loyal customers.
Yeah. I don't think you have to worry about loyalty. All right, Jean, I do this thing on the show called the wine list. I ask all my guests, each guest gets asked the same 5 questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions about your wine preferences. and everybody who passes, through this microphone gets asked the same 5 questions. My listeners are always interested in, what guys like you are drinking and thinking. So I'm going to ask you 5 questions. Answer them quickly. Don't dwell on them. If you have multiple answers, fine. If you have one, fine. So the first question that we ask everyone is, what are you drinking now? Now, I suspect that you're always tasting your wines and all of that, but what other wines do you like to taste or drink? What's in your refrigerator right now? Are you changing your taste because of the seasons? Give me an idea.
So yes, we are tasting our wines, but we are never, I will say, drinking our wines because our wines is working. It's work, and when we are drinking at the table, it's completely different. So we need to escape from the work. So we are drinking a little bit. We are drinking mostly, and shame of us, but French wine. Okay. Maybe because it's what we know the best. Okay. So we are drinking a lot of champagne, for sure.
Champagne is always great.
Yeah, and the weekend we always have a bottle of champagne, but we really enjoy the Loire Valley with Cabernet, especially maybe in summer or spring when the weather is a little bit warmer, because you can refresh a little bit, and they are always delicious.
Those are good ones.
For the white, we are doing.
What whites were you going to say?
And the white, we are drinking a lot of, I think the opposite of the white we are doing. We are drinking a lot of white from Alsace, mostly Riesling, dry Riesling.
Right. They're making great wines.
Yes. More and more from Roussillon, but not very rich and very rich white. More the whites made at a higher altitude.
Right, those are good ones. Do you have? This may be the silliest question, but it's a good one. Do you have a favorite wine and food pairing? Not something you necessarily eat every night or every month, but what is just that great wine and food pairing to you?
It's difficult to say, but I think the wine we appreciate the most are always made by friends,
right?
Because you know the way they have done it, all the energy they put in the wine, so it's always the favorite. Even if it's not the best wine, it will be the best.
So what is a favorite friend's wine? What does it pair well with? Is there a wine pairing, or it's hard to answer that?
I will say maybe something Clobaquet from Elian d'Arros with lamb. For me, it's the perfect pairing because I love lamb.
Okay. Right, that's a good one. Do you ever get out around there? I mean, is there a wine bar or restaurants? I mean, do you have a favorite place just to maybe get out of there?
We used to have.
Okay.
We are very lucky. No, we are very lucky in this area because there are a lot of restaurants from the top 3-star like Pic or Les Cèdres in this area. Or we have less small wine bar, but there is a very nice wine bar in Tel-Hermitage, Bateau Ivre, with a very nice warm welcome. So you can drink nice wine, lower price.
So it sounds like you have some good places there. I just wanted to let you know we post all our guest answers on our social media sites so they could, see them. I've been doing the show over 4 years, and I asked this question from the beginning, but it's changed a little. I used to ask people, what is your favorite all-time wine? And the idea was, Jean, what was the most expensive rare wine you drank? I don't care about that answer anymore. The question really is, what is an important wine to you? What is a wine throughout, your life, your wine career that really woke you up or still makes an impression? Can you think of one or two?
I think that it's a question of the moment, so we had, I don't know, 2 years ago, Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Laurent Charvin, 2005, and it was just the right time, the right place, the right friends, and I can still feel the taste of this wine in my mouth.
So I think that's the answer to the question. At the time, at the place, who you were with, it was obviously a wonderful wine. And that has occurred probably, other times. I mean, that's the way to answer that question.
It's the time to have an emotion. It's not the time to have an analysis of the wine. It's just time to feel good and to let you have emotions.
Right. I agree with that. I agree that feeling and environment is as important as the wine itself, and that's what makes the whole thing special. Last question. What the question is, and I'm not going to ask you as the question, because we have a lot of sommeliers on and winemakers. You make a handful of wines. We ask people, what are some of the best wines to drink around, that are around $15, $20 American? I'm not going to ask you that question. I'll ask it to you this way. What wines, and think of a white or a red, what wines present the best value to the drinkers? Like certainly Muscadet is delicious and it's very reasonable, for a white. I'm thinking that way. What when you think of, if I said to my kids in their 20s, I just asked Jean Gonon what wines you should buy, that are not expensive. Here's what he said. And, they would look up and go, well, he knows what he say. What can you think of?
I will say, of course, you can say Muscadet, you can say all the wine from the Loire, Vouvray, Montlouis. But, and a little bit more in this area, it's Coteau du Lyonnais, I think, the best value.
Right.
So it's just south of Lyon, so they have very good Gamay. They can have some Syrah too. The white is made with Chardonnay, and in this area, I think it's the best value.
Those are good ones. Those are good ones. You did a great job, Jean. And like I said, I'm going to post those. I didn't mean to throw you off by subjecting you to those questions. I had mentioned to you if we had time, if you and I could taste a little wine on the air. I pulled out of my cellar a 2016, the Saint Joseph Rouge. I have a glass in front of me. So I'm tasting the 2016 Domaine Pierre Gonon Saint Joseph, the Rouge. Can you tell me a little more about this particular wine?
So about the vintage, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The vintage 16 was the last classic vintage we had. Before 17, very dry, 18, very hot, 19, very hot. So 16 was quite classic with a lot of rain in spring. And after summer was okay, but not so good. But suddenly the weather changed at the end of July, and we had a beautiful August. And August made the wine. So it's a classic vintage. So the wines are a little bit close, I think, and on the reduction for the moment. They need maybe 2 or 3 years more to age.
So don't drink the 16 till at least 22, 23 is what you're saying.
Yes, or put it gently in a decanter for 2 hours.
Okay.
Maybe, if you want to drink it.
You said the 17, 18, and the 19 were hot. And that 16 was classic. The heat, what does that do to the wine? Is that something you have to do in the farm or in the cellar? Or, like you said, you deal with Mother Nature and the grapes she gives you after you attend to them. What makes those vintages different than the 16?
Yes, the challenge maybe with this global warming is to pay more attention of the vineyard, to keep more leaves, to stop plowing when it's too dry. Every details will count at the end of the year.
Right.
And maybe the harvest time has changed too, because you can't say that you will pick very late, or no, you need to pick ripe and very ripe, but at the right time. And when it's ripe, it's done. You need more pickers. You have less time to do it, so you need to be more precise.
Now, because of
with
global
this kind of vintages,
with global warming, creating 3 consecutive hot vintages, does that mean you're picking earlier?
Yes, and yes, we are picking earlier, but we are picking ripe. We don't want to pick earlier to keep more acidity, and no, we pick at the right. We try to pick at the right time when it's very ripe, but not overripe, and it's maybe more difficult because you can't pick all the day because the afternoon are too warm, so you need to pick only in the morning with more people. So it's a little bit challenging.
Right. All right. So I have the wine in front of me. The color is, typically a deep, dark purple. The nose on this wine, it's certainly not closed. What are your rememberings of the 16 nose? What do you get from this wine?
Yeah, it's not close, but for me it's a little bit reducing, so it's a little bit meaty, and it needs some oxygen to have something a little bit more full, like some violets or old roses flavors.
Right. Right. I agree with that. Violets came to my mind right away. Would you say the mouthfeel on most or all of your wines is a full-bodied mouthfeel? How would you describe them? When I
Yeah,
say full body, I mean that in a positive way, that it's not thick or unctuous or over.
They are full-bodied, but they are not fat. They have always
That's what I
this austerity, maybe. They are a little bit severe in the mouth because you've got more. It's not really fruity; it's more salty.
Yes.
The sensation in the mouth, like anchovies, or you've got this sensation
tapenade.
of saltiness. Yes, tapenade, black olives.
Yep. Talk to me about the palate. Everything we discussed, I just picked up. The violets were very prominent. The saltiness is a signature of the wine. A little of that smoky, meaty. What else is there?
Yes, so there is nothing about the wood because we are using only old barrels, no new oak. So there is nothing, but you can feel the structure. There is not a lot of flesh like a very ripe fruit, but something dense. I don't know how to explain. It's dense, but it's not full-bodied in terms of flesh all around the mouth.
I
agree something
with
drinkable.
That. What would you describe any fruits in this? Black fruits? What comes to mind?
Yeah, it's more more than something fruity. Maybe something like prunelle, small plums.
Right.
So blue, not dark fruit, but maybe more blue fruit.
Right.
Blueberries. Yes, prunelle.
Right.
Small plums, very blue.
It's like a small plum sprinkled with a teeny bit of salt, which is to me very interesting.
Yeah.
These wines pair well with meats, lamb, grilled. Anything else?
Yes. Pigeon. I think all the meat with a little bit of blood, so the pink meat.
Yep.
Because you've got this touch of saltiness and bloody in the wine. So it's pairing well with pigeon, lamb. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we just tasted the 2016 Domaine Pierre Gonon Saint Joseph Rouge. It's out there, not easy to find because people like me, when they see it, hoard it. But there are still people that have it, and you could find it in some good restaurants. Jean, we have to wrap up. It's been over an hour. It went very quickly. I could probably sit here another hour with you. Let me do a quick wrap up. If you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Please subscribe to the Grape Nation podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. On Instagram, you could follow us at SBenRuby, and on Twitter at BenRuby, but you can use the hashtag The Grape Nation on both to get to us. As I mentioned earlier, I will post Jean's wine list. I will lay out the answers that he gave us to our 5 questions. I will also give you more information on our weekly wine sip, the 2016. And that will be on all our social media sites. John, not that you need help, but if people want to find out more about Domaine Pierre Gonon, what's the best place for them to turn to?
The best way maybe is to email, and I will answer.
Okay. Where should they email?
To Gonon.
Okay.
Pierre at wanadoo.fr.
Okay. Wanadoo, WANADOO.FR, France. We got that. All right,
Yeah.
John, I've been waiting to talk to you because I love your wines. I love the work you do.
Thank
I
you.
love your commitment. This to me was, I wouldn't use the word fun, but this was a very fulfilling interview to have the opportunity to talk to you firsthand about everything you're doing out there, which I think is great. So I want to thank our guest, Jean Gonon from Domaine Pierre Gonon. I want to thank our engineer, Matt, for helping us get through all of this, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. And thanks for listening.